Yo, what's shaking, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Monday Overreaction Show. I'm Geoff Ketchum. That's Anwar Richardson. You're watching the Orange Bloods Texas Football Channel, and this show is brought to you by the Rogue Shop, therogueshop.com. Rogue Apothecary, one of our favorite sponsors in all of the orangebloods.com kingdom, and Texas is home for legal CBD and THC. Do us a favor, like this video. If we say something that remotely entertains you, makes you chuckle, you hate us, whatever that, like, thumbs up always works. Subscribe to the channel because we want to have you again. And smash on that little bell and get notifications every time Anwar and I do one of these videos, which is like almost 5 times a week. So you don't want to miss any of it. We do entertain people from time to time. Mr. Richardson, it's an overreaction kind of Monday. I feel like in the last 48 hours, I have been inside the belly of the beast of numerous overreactions. You were in person for Steve Sarkisian's Monday press conference, which is the genesis of the Monday Overreaction Show to begin with. We overreact to things that he says at the press conference, but during the season, we also overreact to whatever it is in the hell has happened on the 40 acres and the 48 hours it precedes it. So, as I'm prone to do on these Mondays, I'll let you go batter up first. If there is an overreaction from today or the weekend that you want to get into. And maybe we should start with the press conference first, because we may never return to it if we don't. Anything from the press conference that you want to overreact to?
The only thing I'll react to, I did ask Sarkisian the Hudson Card question, because that is something that's just not going away. And, it almost seemed like a double down once again of his stance on Casey versus Hudson at this point. And, there was a thought, maybe 4 games left in the season, you go ahead and give Hudson a shot. Maybe, at some point you say, okay, maybe even if you felt like he saw ghosts against Arkansas, well, the only way for him to improve is by playing. And so, how you get out of it, you're not going to shake that through just being in practice. You've got to be having some live bullets. Double down on that. It's kind of not dealing with that. And he still feels like Casey, he's not going to make a change. He kind of said, like, once I recognize who my guy is, I don't like to do a lot of rotating. So it seems like he's going to stick with Hudson for the rest of the year. And, we could go down that rabbit hole or not, but, I'm just saying, like, okay, that's his decision. We'll see what happens. I'm at this point now, Ketch, I'll be honest with you. There's 4 games left in the season. I've got a shoulder shrug. It doesn't, what if you throw Hudson in, fine. You still at the end of the day, you're still trying to get to the Texas Bowl. It doesn't matter to me who the hell plays at this moment, because there's not a ton left to play for, to be honest with you. So there was that on the table. It's a minor thing. The recruiting thing at towards the end I thought was interesting when he said he wanted to get 5 offensive linemen. And that being a goal, and you and I've talked about that. He's like, I could get 5 offensive linemen today. And it's like, well, probably not good ones, but because if you get the 5 that you want, you obviously would have pulled the trigger on that. So that's clearly not what we're talking about. But him just kind of addressing the need that, they probably will have to, take care of that. A little bit of talk about everything else. And then, the other thing is, and I'll get into the bigger thing, and this is probably kind of parlay unless you had some real overreactions. I just feel like my main overreaction, Catch, is that we are now officially in blame game season. We are officially into who can we blame and who's the deserves responsibility. So is it the coaches that we're going to blame? Is it the players that need to be blamed? Is it the strength and conditioning coach that needs to be blamed? Is it the quarterback that needs to be blamed? Maybe it's the media for not asking the tough questions. Maybe the media is to be blamed, or the media for setting expectations. Maybe it's a recruiting thing, and maybe it's a recruit. It's just whatever you want to choose. There's blame out there, and that's where we're officially at. With everybody, it is almost like we're at a stage, Catch, where this season we're at Lord of the Flies, And it is just chaos at this moment on the island. Everybody seemingly is going for just killing each other in this weird kind of crazy type of way. So, my overreaction is, well, damn, this sucks. I mean, just to be quite honest with you.
All right. You said a lot.
Yes.
And actually, a lot of it was really good in the sense that I think it was press conference stuff that I'm going to get into a few other things before we circle back around to, I think, the bigger conversation of today's show. Really, the thing that I think will dominate this conversation is kind of assessing responsibility and, whether that's another word for blame, I suppose. So we'll get back to that in a moment because it certainly has turned into, I think, the talking point in the Texas fan base and probably above that coming out of this weekend where the Longhorns are 4-4 going into Ames, Iowa. I wanted to touch on a few other things from the press conference that you didn't.
Okay, go for it.
The first one is at the end of the press conference, Roger Wallace asked about the mentality of the team and the team's psyche, at which point Sarkisian said that if we keep talking about a bruised psyche, we're going to get a bruised psyche. And I'm like, you're the one last week that turned the entire press conference into psyche talk. Like we didn't get the free solo thing from thin air. So I only wanted to say his answer today is the answer that I thought he should have given last week. So I'm not nitpicking the reaction today, other than he was like, I don't think we need to really talk about it. I'm not going to get into it. It's what I thought he should have done a week ago, because in not doing so a week ago, it really did lead to a story, an entire week of conversation about free solo and the psyche. And then when they lost again, I don't know that the next week you get to say, where'd you guys coming up with this psyche stuff? But I actually thought this was a better press conference on the whole. Like, we're judging press conferences. That's kind of what we do. But whereas I was nitpicking a week ago at his approach, remember a week ago, I was like 10 minutes in, I was tuning him out. That didn't happen today. Mm-hmm. I thought from a performance standpoint, I thought today was better. A couple of things though, that I thought that you didn't mention, I thought were really interesting. One, I'm shocked that you want to talk about doubling down. I feel like he's quadrupled down and quintupled down on the decision to go for it on 4th and 11 with the fake punt in the context of the game that he did. He kind of called out his defense for giving up a touchdown after that play took place. But the whole reason that many of us would say that you don't go for it on 4th and 11 with a fake punt with an RPO on it at midfield in a 3-point game on the road, like one of the reasons why you don't do it is because you don't want to risk giving a short field to another team who's been moving the ball on you so that they can take a 3-point lead and potentially make it a 6 or a 10-point lead. Like, that's part of the deal. So I would only say one of my overreactions is you don't get to call a 4th and 11 fake punt with all of the danger associated with it inside the context of what was happening in the game, and then really get to be upset because the defense didn't bail you out. I mean, Again, everybody gets to share responsibility in that situation. Like, he's still maintaining today that it was almost the right choice and there's no looking back. But he also was the same guy that admitted that his 3rd down and 4 red zone call on their last offensive possession that ended with them kicking a field goal was a play that he would like to have back. So if on one hand, you admit that you spent some time over the weekend wishing you had that play call back, which I called out in real time. I didn't get it. If we don't no need to relitigate it, but I'm with you, Sark. Then it's okay to look back at an even riskier. There's the 4th and 11 fake RPO. Like, that is a substantially worse call and decision than running the ball with Bijan Robinson on 3rd and 4. mean,
Well,
just
here's the problem. But catch, it's not fourth. Here's the thing. It's not 4th and 11. It's really 4th and 21 because you've got the punter standing back 10 yards. So it's, I mean, 4th and 11 is the technical down and distance. But when you think about where the guy started, he literally said, we're going to gain 21 yards. That's really what he said. I'm sorry.
No, you're right. It's a fair point. I don't know how much we need to litigate. You know what I mean? Like, I just wanted to mention it, that the most shocking thing from the press conference for me was the continued justification of the decision to go for it on 4th and 11, because it remains one of the more asinine things I think I've ever seen. And about 15 minutes before we started recording this, friend of the show, Rod Babers, who I've known for about 20 years, tweeted out, quote, it's the tweet of the Monday so far. I've watched Texas's loss to Baylor 3 times. And the fact that Steve Sarkisian called an RPO fake punt on 4th and 11 at midfield, down 24-21 on the road with 9 minutes left in the game, still leaves me flabbergasted, ... And as a black man, I don't use that word very often. Hashtag hook 'em. Hashtag horns.
God, is ridiculous.
It is. It really it is for me the Charlie coin toss. It is the thing. You mentioned it on Saturday. I'll never forget that decision. And if it's 4th and 6, if the game dynamics are a little bit different, I totally understand. When it's 4th and 11, and the odds of your quarterback completing a pass on 4th and 11 to convert is probably less than 25%. The odds of your punter being able to pull that off have to, you know what I mean? Like, anyway, so that's my nitpick. Other than that, yeah, the press conference was perfectly fine. I think that.
Wait, what is the president of the Hudson Card fan club? Does it have anything to say about Hudson Card?
I think he was a little more wishy-washy. Like, his thing was, what did he say? He's like, I'm pretty sure that Thompson's going to be the starter, or without. He didn't say, when asked not by you, but by somebody else,
was that
whether or not he would be the quarterback. Matter of fact,
I anticipate him being the starter. Yeah.
He said he anticipates him being the starter on Saturday. And at the same time, he talked about how Card was chomping at the bit and he doesn't like rotating guys and he elects guys to play through it. But I do believe, and maybe this is a different show for later in the week, I think if Casey Thompson plays poorly on Saturday and they lose, I think Hudson Card's back in the driver's seat. I think at that point they'd be 4 and 5, and Thompson would be 2 and 4 as a starter. And so if he plays well and they lose, he's fine. But if he has another game where afterwards it's like, when is this regression to the mean going to stop? If it doesn't stop from Saturday in Waco and we don't see a real bounce back performance, I do think the door opens up for Hudson Card to enter the final 3 games of the season in the same way that Thompson entered the starting job, right? You're left with Thompson starts off with 2 games that almost everybody believed that Texas would win and whoever quarterbacked would play well. If you do something next week, you're beyond the slate of games that feel really, really hard. I mean, if K-State's hard, your team's real. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I'm not saying K-State's a pushover, but K-State, West Virginia, and Kansas, and technically the first game would be Kansas and not Kansas State. That would be the game if you were going to make a change to make it. I don't think you do it on the road against Iowa State this week. But if we get to Kansas next week and Hudson Card's not playing at all, like, we probably just need to stop talking about Hudson Card as a football player at Texas. I mean, at that point, Sarkisian will have told us with his actions that Casey Thompson is his quarterback under all circumstances. And I don't know how How do you win that? How do you win that job in practice back, but you can't get on the field? It just feels very much like a checkmate moment in the way, if I'm Hudson Card, I'm viewing myself inside the program. I won the job in practice, and you've now deemed whatever happens in practice unimportant, and you won't let me play in games. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we are reaching a point where we have to acknowledge the elephant in the room, and that we have always anticipated that a quarterback change one way or the other would likely happen in the next offseason. If Hudson Card is blackballed out of playing and checkmated by his opponent, I mean, it just is what it is. And I think at that point, everybody will just start expecting that will be something to keep an eye on going into the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, it'll if Hudson doesn't get on the field, then it does beg the question, well, what would it take for him to get on the field? And when all is said and done, what's the difference? Because it seems like at this moment, no matter what this happened in practice, what Sarkisian has told himself at this moment is, whatever I'm seeing in practice probably doesn't necessarily relate to the game. So no matter how good I think Hudson may look in that setting, it doesn't matter to me. And so if he's telling himself this in 2020, or 2021, I guess we're in 21, excuse me, but we're in 2021. I mean, this is going by so fast. So, but if he's telling himself this season that whatever I saw in practice leading up to this doesn't matter, I just got to focus in on what's happening in the games. Well, then what does next offseason look like? Because at the end of the day, he'll tell himself, well, I know what it looks like in practice, but you know what? I don't know. I'm probably not going to go that route again. It's going to be hard, and whatever kind of burn that Steve Sarkisian felt that occurred, I don't think he wants to, quote unquote, get burned again. So if he doesn't play at all, and the fascinating thing to me is that he said all offseason, that's why I asked him specifically in this manner. He said all offseason it was close. He said it was so close. You remember
closest of his career.
Closest ever. And so he used the Matt Castle comparison to kind of go there and how close, but then he went with the young guy and okay, well now he's one to the, but you still wonder like, man, if you say it was that close and it was, just razor thin, when it almost seemed like it was a coin toss to you, then what happened that made the distance so like Usain Bolt, right? Just to the point it's Usain Bolt and everyone else. And you're like, man, you can't close that gap. It's fascinating. I'm not standing on the table saying something should happen or in any shape or form, but it's just really interesting just where his mind is at and to kind of see where he's thinking or how he's thinking.
Yeah, I don't think neither one of us is standing on a table and saying that Casey Thompson shouldn't start in Ames against Iowa State. But the play at the position hasn't been at such a level where the idea of competition and maybe the other guy should get some. And look, we did this with Sam Ehlinger last year. When the quarterback's not playing well and you've got a talented guy in the background, I remember very early last season against Texas Tech thinking, Sam, it'll cause an absolute shitstorm, but man, Texas probably does need to make a change for a possession or two and see how it goes. With 4 games to go, how they use the quarterbacks, I think he shows up and he's desperate to win this weekend, which is one of the reasons why Hudson would never play on Saturday. He's desperate. He can't lose 4 in a row. And he can't be 4-5. We're talking about, I think Sark could cut off a finger at this point to win a game on Saturday. So this won't be the weekend for that. But, at some point over the rest of the schedule, if things aren't getting better, then, it's an absolute fair question and it will return. Look, it'll be the first question next week if they lose and the quarterback position doesn't play a good game, the first question he'll get next Monday is about the quarterback position and whether or not Hudson Card in these final 3 games is going to get a look. It's kind of unavoidable. I thought both your questions were good this week. We haven't even mentioned it, but you asked him about strength and conditioning and whether or not it was a problem. And he went into a very elaborate answer to say, no, strength and conditioning is not a problem. Okay, well then you know what? In a second, when we start talking about responsibility and blame, I'm not going to blame strength and conditioning.
Becton's off the hook.
He's off the hook. He's off the hook.
They've got the numbers to prove, on their GPS monitoring stuff that's not it. That's not it.
Scientifically, he told us we're good.
Yes.
So whatever's happening, it's not because whatever's happening in the fourth quarter, per Steve Sarkisian, science is saying it's not a Becton problem. So you know what? We're going to start talking about responsibility, and I'm not going to strengthen. This is the only part of the entire show where strength and conditioning I'm going to bring up. I might, just because Steve Sarkisian, I might say just in advance, I'm going to save a sliver of blame for strength and conditioning. Just a sliver. Just out of principle. Just out of principle, because everybody has to shoulder some responsibility.
Okay.
But it ain't hitting double digits. If there's a pie of 100% based on Sarkisian's answer today, it would be unfair to blame Torrey Becton, but it would be unfair to everybody else to absolve anybody from any and all. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's got to have a little responsibility. So Becton, just so you know, I'm saving you a slice of the pie, but it's so small you can't even eat it. But everybody gets a slice. So even Xavier Worthy gets a slice. And he didn't do anything wrong on Saturday.
You can't. What are we going to blame that guy for?
I'm just saying everybody gets a little slice.
You're saying everybody can get some.
Everybody gets a little slice. Bijan gets a slice.
What does Bijan get a slice for?
He didn't do enough, even if it wasn't his fault.
Well, you're just handing it out just to hand it out.
Because I'm about to really hand some out in a second.
Uh-oh.
I feel like it's trick. Yesterday when we went and trick-or-treated, which means I left a bucket in front of our house with a sign. And it's funny because there must have been 1,000 pieces of candy. My wife's been accumulating candy for months.
Mm-hmm.
So I dumped it all into like this 5-gallon Halloween bucket.
That's a lot of candy.
And I wrote 5 pieces each.
No, you're an ass.
That's how much candy was in there.
What time? Were they allowed to eat their candy though?
Well, I mean, I'm talking about.
Are you just talking about accumulation?
I'm talking about we had an accumulated to give out.
Oh, to give out.
Yeah.
Oh, 5 apiece to give out?
Yeah, that's how much.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's a good haul.
It's very good. And
that's a good haul.
My daughter was like, most people only give out 1 or 2 pieces.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, we have a lot of candy to give out.
That's a lot of candy, by the way.
We have a lot of responsibility and blame to give out. I'm going to give some people 5 pieces.
Okay.
I'm giving Bijan, Becton, and Xavier like a Tootsie Roll. Just one. Just one. My daughter officially.
A candy corn, a candy that no one cares about, and it's horrible. A Tootsie Roll we might eat, give them something that's this kind of.
Well, my daughter deemed the single Tootsie Roll as like the cheapest form of candy payment she could receive. I don't know why. She really judged the idea of just getting a she doesn't like Tootsie Rolls, I suppose. So for her, it is the candy. I don't even know if she knows what candy corn is. I might have to go buy some at the store and force feed it on her.
Ugh.
So that next
year,
some
love.
I actually like candy corn.
Mm.
You know why? Because my great grandmother always used to have it in the house, along with orange slices. You remember those candy with the little like sparkle things on them, and they're kind of chewy, gummy. I grew up on candy corn and orange slices, which probably explains a lot about me that I don't know.
Listen,
Right.
I grew up on my grandmother would take me to church, and she always had peppermints in her bag. I don't really like peppermints that much. She also had there's like a yellowish kind of candy. I forget what that one was. Butterscotch or something.
Butterscotch. Oh yeah.
Butterscotch like that.
My great grandmother dug some butterscotch too.
Yeah, that was like older people like things like butterscotch, peppermints, and stuff like that. So I grew up with it. I don't like them.
I don't really rock the butterscotch, but you know what? If I went over to your house and you had a bowl of butterscotch candy,
you have some.
I'd take a couple pieces, one for now and a couple for later. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's go ahead and do what you're going to do.
Well,
go ahead.
Anwar, the thing is, they go 4-4 on Saturday. It's incredibly disappointing. They obviously, third straight game against a ranked team in which they have a double-digit lead in the second half. And then they lose that double-digit lead and they lose the game. Look, there are a lot of issues, I think, facing you. And I spent the entire offseason talking about there's a change at quarterback. They have the left tackle went pro, and there's nobody that you really feel good about taking over that job. We had question marks about the offensive line. You and I made a bet. How pathetic is this? You and I have a Ray Thornton bet.
Oh my God.
And I think that was just 4 sacks. Like, we're betting incredibly modest things. And you know what? Didn't he get like 2 in one game, but he's got none in the rest? And like, I think if the number was 4, I'm still going to be okay.
You got to go back and feel. I don't even remember. I remember the bet, but boy,
I'm pretty sure it was 4 sacks.
Yeah, talk about a horrible hill to die on.
But I mean, we spent an entire offseason talking about personnel holes that are on this team.
Mm-hmm.
Those personnel holes are the reasons why you and I scoff at 10-2, 11-1, 12-0, like the things that fans were going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs over, right?
Yes.
The question all season long was like, can they get to 9? Are they 8? I think Vegas had it at 7.5, and we were like, 7-5. This program's beyond that, right? Like, you and I were both like, Herman wins 7 games, right? And Sark's supposed to be an upgrade from that. They're at 500. They've lost 3 in a row. And I sensed this in Charlie Strong's first year. It absolutely happened. And it happened with Herman. When there are signs of trouble, fans of the Longhorns, and maybe this is just a condition of fandom in general, they're so thirsty to keep the dream of them having a special coach who does special things and would never make mistakes like not taking offensive linemen in the portal. Like, that doesn't happen. Because if you admit that, man, the coach has actually got a string of things, from personnel decisions to the Casey Thompson Hudson Card decision in the first place. I mean, he quit on his starting quarterback after 6+ quarters. We talked about it in real time. Kind of a sketchy thing for a head coach to do, regardless of the circumstances. But we're at this point in the year where people are so scared at saying that Sarkisian has some blood on his hands for what's happened this season, that now we're pointing the direction in every direction but towards him. And I just don't think that's fair. One of the narratives that was emerging yesterday on Orange Bloods and all over the internet was Herman didn't leave him enough talent to be better than 4-4. And it's like, nobody said that in the offseason. Nobody said, whoa, Ketch, I know you're picking 9-3 and Anwar's picking 8-4, but have you seen the first 8 games of the schedule with the talent that's left behind? 4-4 or 5-3 is as good as it can get. Nobody was saying that. And today this narrative exists, and it is because there's a dire need to do this with your head football coach. And I reject that. Steve Sarkisian can get some too. And it doesn't mean that I think Steve Sarkisian's a complete failure, although this season is a disaster. 4-4 is a disaster. I mean, sorry if you don't think that, but it doesn't mean that I don't think he's going to have a ton of success or could have a lot of success. But it means when we look at what's happening this season on the field, he has to own some responsibilities for the failures of this team. Tom Herman did not leave a roster back that ever was 500. I mean, I suppose there's some super seniors and some older guys, but every junior, sophomore, and freshman on that team that returned, all they know is being pretty good. They're never terrible. They never lost 3 games in a row. They were always just okay. Never good enough, but never terrible. Never completely average to the point where their record is 500. That's happened this season. And I have a hard time blaming Tom Herman for things that did not happen on his watch, for things like he's suddenly responsible for 3-game losing streaks when those things weren't happening in the final 3 years of his tenure. So, that doesn't mean I'm absolving the players. It means I think there's a big old pot of gumbo with all kinds of pieces inside of it that can be shared, but that everybody's got to get a piece of it. And this need to absolve Sarkisian from responsibility is the same thing that I rejected when Charlie Strong was in his first year and when Tom Herman were in their first year, and they both didn't do great jobs in their first years.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you to the Rogue Shop. If I say it too fast, I just mumble the words together. TheRogueShop.com. Rogue Apothecary, one of Anwar and I's favorite places. Use the promo code Orange Bloods and get the hookup. Thanks for watching the show. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, get the notifications, do all of that stuff. For Anwar and myself, we'll talk to you tomorrow, as a matter of fact. You guys be good to each other. Later.